And tonight we've got a guest. So we're joined by Chris Dicker, a really good old friend. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I'm. It's also morning for me here as well, so I've only got some water. Yeah, not quite ready for the hard stuff that you're on. Put it that way.
Fantastic. So, Chris, the reason we wanted to get you on today is because you're a little bit famous this week. I just behind me here, I have an article from Reuters. I'm going to read it for you. It says, Alphabet's Google has been hit by an EU antitrust complaint over its AI overviews from a group of independent publishers, which has also asked for an interim measure to prevent allegedly irreparable harm to them, according to a document seen by Reuters. Now, when I used to be an investigative reporter, I used to say things like, in a document seen by Reuters, or a source told me, but I believe that you might actually be behind this court case. So we've got you on and you can tell us all about it for reals. So, mate, what's going on?
So, I can't take all the credit for it. The lovely guys at Foxglove have ultimately been championing this. However, when we heard about it and heard about the cause and so forth, we to give you a bit of background, I sit on the board of the Independent Publishers Alliance. So we're a group of about 50 publishers, mainly UK, but some in the US and other territories. And when we heard about it and had numerous conversations, we were like, absolutely, this is a serious impact to our industry right now. And we want to champion it and we want to help you and help fight the cause as much as possible. So we're willing to get involved. So as it stands at the moment, we are a signatory on the complaint, the alliance that is. That's the C signatories. There's the Foxglove, there's the Independent Publishers Alliance, and the Freedom for the Open Web. So there's the three of us, and currently the complaint has been lodged with the CMA in the UK and with the European Copyright Commission. So in the EU.
Congratulations, mate. How are you feeling?
I mean, do you know what? So to give you a bit of background, obviously, I used to work at one of the large media publishers. In 2020, I did a buyout of a couple of brands and became an independent publisher myself. So I got involved and joined the board of the Independent Publishers Alliance very, very early on because I realised that there was no one really kind of championing the needs of independent publishers, you know. So it was a great cause to get involved in, and I think there's always been that element of people thinking, or we know we've been done wrong by big tech for so many years now, right? And
I think we noticed.
Yeah. And I think there's always been that feeling of, in order to hold them account to the law, you have to sue them or take them to court and things like that. And I think people have always felt, we're never going to win because they've always got more money than us, right? So we just have to just sit back and take it and, oh, well, that's happened again. How do we adapt? And having worked with the Price School guys and Tim over there, who's been absolutely amazing.
They're the lawyers, right?
They are the lawyers. Yeah. It's actually made me realise how easy it is to actually lodge complaints and so forth. And there's funders out there that are willing to help champion these causes and so forth. So what I would say is if there's publishers out there that are thinking, oh, that's never an option, don't write it off, because if you've got a good enough case, I'm telling you now, there's people that will help kind of champion that stuff for you. So yeah, don't completely write it off. The subtle plug as well, what I would say is, if you're an independent publisher, right, and you're hearing this and kind of realize I kind of want to network with other independent publishers, feel free to either reach out to me or go to the alliance.co.uk and join the group. It's £195 for the year.
That wasn't very subtle, but I see
it wasn't subtle, but I thought I'd just chuck it in,
No, that's right.
It's our first commercial break on this show.
There you go. Right. You're not going to send me a bill, are you, Ricky?
Just send me whiskey. This one here.
That's right.
Hey, so let's talk about AI overviews for a minute for anybody that's been under a rock for the last couple of years and hasn't really spotted it, right? So, as you know, Chris, you and I have spoken at length about this. I've been following the AI overview since it was a patent. And so, it was leaked to me by somebody at Google. They sent me the patent. I read it. I'd run an AI company, so I knew what it said. And then I wrote an article like 2.5 years ago, and it said something, or slightly less actually, nearly 2 years ago. And it said something like, this is going to be like an asteroid for the media industry because this is not going to send links back to publishers. It expressly says in the patent that we're only going to link back to the source material in extreme circumstances. That's what it says. And so it looked to me like Google was pivoting from being a search engine to an answers machine, which is what we've now seen. But there was then this horrible series of obfuscation and lies. So I started getting all these angry phone calls from SEOs saying to me, I've spoken to Google, this is never going to happen, it's just a test. They're not interested in putting it out to the real world. Chris Sticker, you remember, I was chatting to you about this when I was over. And it's just never going to happen. It's never going to go to real life. It's just part of our AI stuff. We're just like experimenting. And then they launched it in a whole load of South Sea Island states. So all these little South Sea Islands just north of me here in Australia all suddenly started finding their search engine now had this like answer at the top of it. And they were like, no, it's just a test. It's a tiny test. We've done it out of the way. No one's interested. And then it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And then it rolled out to like 60, 70 countries. And then there was a Google I/O event, I think about a year ago. And I got a phone call like from the auditorium just going, they've just announced it's going global and it's in America. And that was the moment it became very, very real. So, Chris, how much have you seen it impact on your publisher members? Because what used to be a threat now feels to be real. Is that what's happening?
It's a bloodbath, putting it lightly, out there. And yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice at all. I mean, we've got members that have seen a 90% decrease in traffic in 12 months. There's also, I would say it seemed to, especially looking in the UK, it's kicked on again since April this year. Obviously that was midway through the CMA's SMS consultation, where we knew they were collecting data from publishers, but I think they timed it quite well to potentially be near the end of that process. Coincidence, correlation, causation, who knows? Since April, we've had members who've seen 70% decrease in desktop traffic since April, 50% on mobile. It's business ruining, right? We last year, I think it was about 5 members who went out of business, who just went, do you know what? Enough's enough. And these aren't businesses that have just been around for a year or anything like that to try to do something. It hasn't worked. These are businesses that have been around for 10, 15 years plus, with an established kind of following that have just been, you take 90% of your traffic away when your model has all been advertising and potentially affiliates, right? Because that has been the ecosystem that has been created by Google, right? There has been that fair value exchange. You take that away, no business can adapt like that, Yeah, and unfortunately, as off the back of that, there's serious cost cutting that happens, and that unfortunately means the loss of jobs. So yeah, it's a tough place to be right now.
Chris Duncan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm interested in. So, as you say, that the CMA has the designation. It's doing, it asked the question: does Google have this impact? It said that it's going to cover AI overviews in it. I'm kind of interested in the decision to sort of lodge the complaints, because you've asked for specific types of intervention, haven't you?
We put some things forward, yeah.
But by which I mean you're adding this in on top of what the CMA is already doing. I'm just interested in
I think it's a case of going, do you know what, when you lodge something with a legal aspect of things, there has to almost be a public reply and potentially kick things along a bit quicker, right? I mean, we from a UK industry perspective, we've been so far behind the others, right? You think about what's going on in Australia, right? Which Ricky, you know much more about them than I do, but in regards to news publishers being paid by Meta and Google and so forth, that's at renewal stage, right? And the UK hasn't even sorted out anything to do with that in its first instance, right? You've got Canada that have done their deals. You've got the DOJ trying to rip stuff up, and we just seem to be dragging our heels for some reason, and I don't really know why that is. Whether that's a case of the UK's scared of potentially upsetting, the US government by going up against big tech, but the US government are the ones that are leading this, and it was Trump who originally wanted to break them up in his first term, and it looks like it's going to be him in his in his current term. So I think there's potentially a misconception that Trump's all for big tech and wants to keep it together, when it looks like his government's doing something completely different, right? So
but I'm just trying to, I suppose I'm pointing out the contrast between, you've got this sort of very ponderous kind of UK process, which is following a lot of due process, and there's a lot of consultation, and it's kind of heading towards, and it's always moving. It's moving, which it hasn't been for years, so at least it's moving, but it's moving very, very slowly. And you've got your members where you're seeing kind of this sort of 70-90% drop in traffic in a very short period of time, who can't move from month to month. And
it's moving far too slowly, right? The CMA have released, that their proposal to impart SMS status on Google, right? I think they've got until October, I believe, or end of September, October time for the official. This is what we're going to do. But then after that process, after that ends, that goes into another consultation around remedies, right? So it's a case of going, by the time that consultation's out, and then you've got to give them time to implement those side of things, which, I mean, other businesses will be gone before then, right?
Yeah.
And I think big tech knows this ultimately.
So can I just jump in? So one of the I've had a really busy week actually. I've been doing a lot of podcasts this week, and I've been chatting to the FTC. We did an interview with Jonathan Cantor, who led the DOJ case. So I've had a very, very busy week. I think what I'm seeing happen with regulators around the world, and I think it's the same with the CMA, is that they're all pushing these things back until they get a decision from the judge on the remedies in the DOJ case. It's very easy to move quickly when you can put yourself behind kind of the armored elephant that's going ahead, right? So Chris Duncan, when we were on our call the other day, doing this a couple of days ago, we were talking about how the dates that the CMA has chosen for its next stage and its next stage relate specifically or happen to mirror exactly the dates of the DOJ's announcements on the ad tech antitrust and the search antitrust. And there's a very interesting clause in the DOJ's remedy for the search monopoly, which basically says that it wants a requirement put on Google that it enables any publisher and content provider to separate the use of their content for search from the use of their content for AI. And so if the DOJ does go ahead, or the judge says, let's go ahead with that, then that gives, if you like, air cover to every other regulator in the world to issue the same demand. And that might go some way to helping you. But that doesn't mean you stop, by the way. It just means you get your baseball bat out. You make sure you got some nails in it and you start swinging it, right? We've waited too long, right? And look, I always try and drop the F-bomb at least once or twice in here. They can go fuck themselves, right? They are stealing our content. No question. Everyone in the world knows they know. Okay? They know. They clearly know. Right. And so I think we just have to start, Chris, to your point, we have for years assumed that they would lean on their better angels and they do the right things. Okay. But their company is going out of business very, very, very quickly. It's looking old, lazy, and crap. And it's losing all the things that it's been able to do because its monopolies aren't allowed to continue anymore. And so it's desperate too. And so good. But also that means that it's going to misbehave on its way down. I will just add one thing, though. Again, from the chats this week, there are very, 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 very clear rules in the DOJ remedies that say that if Google retaliates in any way against the market for people taking action on the basis of the DOJ's decision, there are significant penalties to pay. So we will know that people are right on this when Sundar Pichai gets his ass kicked out of that chair, okay, which I don't think is very far away.
Yeah, the problem I foresee, right, and then don't get me wrong, it's a great first step in at least giving publishers an element of control to distinguish between whether your content's being used in AI overviews or not. I mean, you'll hear, and you've got to be very clear on the terminology when we talk about this, because Google always come back and go, you can stop your content from appearing in AI overviews now, right? You use a no snippet tag and it doesn't appear in it. That's not the case. You're still taking our content. You're still using that content to train the AI that ultimately creates AI overviews. So in theory, what you're doing is you're taking our content, but then not giving us any credit at all because we've used no snippet. No, we don't even want you to take it to help the training in the first place, right? Now, that would be a great first step to separate those two scrapers, the Google bot and, what they led us to believe Google Extended was going to be about, right? The issue we have, and they are already starting to run their playbook on this aspect of things, is they will do deals, and I will put money on it right now. I would take a bet with anybody who wants one, right? That Google will do deals with large publishers for the use of their content in AI overviews, right? And that's coming at some point. I'll put a deadline up. Within the next 12 months, there'll be an announcement to do with that, right? Now, as an independent publisher, you're then in trouble, even more so, because it's a case of going, right, they're never going to do a deal with, they don't want to pay for this content, right? They don't want to pay anybody. But as we've seen time and time again, if they can pay a few of the big guys, everybody else feels they have to give it to them for free, because otherwise they get nothing, because there's now going to be someone that appears in there, right? And the big guys will just end up eating it all up. But, so I think that's what I foresee happening, because that's their playbook. That's what happens. And then we're left in pretty much a similar situation now, right? Do we want £1 out of the 100 that we've been getting, or no pounds? And that's not really a solution.
Or do we want all the £100, right? So let's just go back to the Australian experience here, because I think it's worthwhile recognizing Australia was kind of the canary in the coal mine here, right? So it decided to go after Google very early, I mean, years ago, right? And to issue a law that would force Google and Meta to pay. And then right on the cusp of that law being enacted, a handful of one large publisher broke the strike and took a check. And then all the other big publishers, all fearing FOMO, they're all going to be pissed off. They're all going to ring me. I don't give a fuck. This is what you did. Stop lying about it. This is what they did. I know who you are. You know who I am. We all know what you did. They took the check from Google and they put it all in the bank. And then all of the smaller publishers were no longer needed, and they all got ignored and they all got fucked over. Yeah. And the anger in the market is palpable between the fat cats that took a check that got them out of a 30-day cash crisis, okay, or a quarterly. We talked about this a lot, haven't we, Chris Duncan? I need to deliver the quarter. That's my only priority. I'll do anything necessary. I'll sell all the family silver. That's basically what they did. And every local publisher was left out. And I went to all of the CEOs that did those deals, and I went to all the local publishers as well and said to them, look, these deals aren't going to last. Google's done this to get rid of the law. Google's done this and Meta's done this to get rid of the law so the law doesn't get passed. And the first chance it gets to get out of these deals, it's going to get out. And they were like, never happened. They're all on side. And sure enough, as soon as the first 3-year renewal came up, Meta left and dumped everyone. And they all rang me in shock. I can't believe they've done this. I'm just like, right, okay. So maybe you shouldn't be the CEO. Just a thought. But then, then where we are now with Google, just so it's clear, is that Google then renewed the deals on that 3-year occasion. But what it did was it changed the terms of the deals. And it changed the terms of the deals to say that they are now 12 monthly deals, right? Because it was waiting to see what the verdicts were going to be in the antitrust trials. So they would then be able to get out if they lost the antitrust trials. They then lost the antitrust trials, and I cannot see them renewing with anyone except, Chris, your point, the one or two that they think are the deal breakers. And so they are playing a game that's 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year ahead of the thinking of the leaders of our media companies, which doesn't mean that we need to deal with Google, because we will. But what we also need to deal with is the people that are leading our media companies.
I think the tough thing, and exactly to your point there, the average term of a chief exec is what, 5 years, right? At these large organizations. So it's kind of a case of, if I can do a 3-year deal and I'm already 2 years into my, they're looking at it from a purely selfish perspective. They can go out and go, I'm the one that did the deal with Google and made a load of money, and doesn't my balance sheet and P&L look fantastic, right? Not thinking, what does that mean? There's no longer term vision of these businesses. To your point, it's like, next quarter, how am I going to hit next quarter? What's year end look like? Right? There's nothing further than that. Because if there was, and they were incentivized to look beyond that, then maybe these deals wouldn't be done.
But I guess for your members, Chris, they're more. A lot of yours are owner managed, aren't they? They're
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so to give you an idea, so some of our members, obviously, you've got My Media Business, right? So Candor Media Groups. We've got brands like Trusted Reviews. There's people I can name. Right?
That's another bottle of whiskey you owe me, mate. That was another ad.
Yeah.
That's another whiskey.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So we have the likes of Mumsnet, and Crash Media, and World History Encyclopedia, which in this case of AI overviews is a fascinating case, right? Because I think from our side of things, yes, news is a massive play purely for democracy and so forth, right? But actually, what Google always comes back with in their argument is, oh, news is only 20% of our queries, 80% is informational. Brilliant. Well, 80% of your queries then are relevant to the World's History Encyclopedia, because that's evergreen content, right? You can't change what's happened in history. So yeah, in theory, you're saying 80% of the searches are relevant to majority of our members. Fantastic. Yeah, even better, even bigger part of the pie.
Can I ask you a question on so you've lodged you're in both the jurisdictions, the UK and the kind of EU.
Correct.
How much work is that in terms of what's different between the two? Are you basically taking exactly the same complaints and harms, and then you're effectively you're very smart lawyers change all the language at the top to say we're talking about this act, and in these jurisdictions for these people, and here's all the language that you need to go to the EU? Or are there actually differences in the kind of complaints themselves?
No, they're pretty much the same complaints, but to exactly to your point, because the issue is the same, right? The issue is the same. The AI overviews is stealing content from people and replacing the people it's stealing from, right? And let's not forget, the cost of the stealing also sits with the victim here, right? So we're picking up the bill for Google to steal it from us. And let's not forget, right? I know we're here to talk about the case and so, but it's not just Google, right? It's all of the AIs, and it's not necessarily just the AIs, AI companies. It's big tech companies, So to give you an idea, we see across one of our sites, despite us having a robust robot docs TXT in place, right? One of the major AI search companies are ignoring robots.txt 70,000 times a day currently on one of our sites. 70,000 times a day, right? Jeez. And that's just one instance from one company. Okay, so when you're looking at that, we now have members being approached by their hosting providers, going, due to the increased load on your servers, right? We now need to change your hosting package, which is going to cost you thousands of pounds more per year. Brilliant. So we're getting less traffic, less monetizable opportunities, and now all of a sudden we're picking up the bill for it as well. The ecosystem as it is right now is dead, right? Something needs to change, and it needs to change quickly.
Look, I'm optimistic, and let me tell you why. So just before I do, quite a lot of people have joined the call since we started. So I just want to be clear. And hello, Paul. Congrats on the new job. I just saw you drop in. So on the call, we've got Chris Dicker from the UK. You might have seen some headlines this week about a court case being brought in the EU and in the UK against AI overviews. In all those articles, it talks about, documents I've seen, and it kind of alludes to it. But Chris is the guy at the center of this, so we've got the real guy here on the line. I'm delighted. I'm proud to call him my friend. Well done, sir. So let's be clear, right? We have seen a trade that's taken place for the best part of 25 years, which is the publishers are giving Google access to their content. Google has returned traffic. We've all had an opportunity to sell it. It's been survival of the fittest. We've all done our best job, and it's been great. Google then entered advertising. Google then started to turn the screw. It made it more and more and more and more unpleasant, but we all needed search traffic, so we all carried on playing. But then they broke the deal completely with AI overviews. And so then they decided not only to take the content for search and to then take all the advertising, but they then wanted to take all the content to train their own machine so they can then publish all the content as well, in which case we're just not needed. Okay, that's overreach. That's overreach. It's just plain overreach. And whoever in their business thought that they were going to get away with this was utterly deluded. And what I actually think happened, based on what I'm hearing in the gossip and the scuttlebutt that I get back from the tech guys, is that Google just flubbed AI, right? And so there's a really good opportunity here to take the piss out of them, right? So we should take it at every opportunity. So OpenAI comes steaming out of the tracks with AI, but Google created most of that AI technology and should have done it itself. And the only reason it didn't was because it was protecting its cash cow, its golden goose in search and search advertising. So it didn't want to make the world better. It just wanted to continue to enrich itself by increasing its monopoly, which is why we've ended up with monopoly cases, right? But when OpenAI came steaming out of the tracks and everybody saw what the world could be like if we weren't relying on a search engine that gave you 10 bloody blue links 25 years after that was invented, all right, we then suddenly thought, oh, hang on, this world might be a little bit better than this, right? We might be able to get off of these bikes and get into actual cars. This would be exciting. Maybe there'd be aeroplanes and all kinds of shit. And we had no idea that this innovation was going to come. And so Google had to play fast catch up. And then what it did was it threw together Bard, which was an utter joke. Do you remember that launch that they did where they just lied about what it did and put all those TV ads on there and said delete because they just said it's going to do this and it couldn't do any of those things. It was a total lie, right? And they were busted for it. And that's awful. And then they killed Bard because it was so embarrassing, changed the name to Gemini, right? And then carried on doing kind of what they were doing, but were a little bit more careful. And then AI Overviews was a desperate attempt to extract all the cash it could from search, okay, without giving any of it back to publishers. So to your point earlier on, Chris, about, this is a playbook. All Google's interested in is returning as much money to its shareholders as it can before it's broken off, which is now imminent. So it's misbehaving, it's lashing out to everybody all around, and it will not last. Okay, they're going to be broken up. It's going to be terrific. You're going to win your court case. It's going to be terrific. I'm directly involved in about $14 billion worth of damages cases. They're going to lose all of them. Okay, or sorry, Google's going to lose them all. So there is a changing of the guard taking place, and the incumbent is getting beaten to death on the path. And it's actually good, but we still can't take our eye off the ball. Lots of people I've interviewed about this, they say to me, Ricky, you're absolutely right. This is definitely going to happen. But whatever you do, do not lift. Don't stop. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right. So we need to do that. And we need warriors like you, Chris, to step up, mate. And as I said earlier on, all respect to you for doing so.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think part of the reason to want to get involved in the case was the case of going, there's very few people that are willing to put their head above the pulpit as such and go, do you know what? This is what's right? And we're not asking for anything that's unfair. We're not asking for an advantage here. We're not asking for anything better than things have been. We're asking for something that's fair. Right? That is all that we're asking. We're asking, that is what we want. We want things to be fair. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
So to ask on that, Chris, so in terms of what you're asking for, if you got everything you'd asked for, what would be different?
Look, I think we've got to look about what's broken currently, and then it's a case of going, let's fix it. right? How do we fix what's currently broken? And the way I see it at the moment is, as I just mentioned, the digital ecosystem as it currently exists right now is broken, right? In regards to publishers getting less traffic, their costs are increasing, right? Their revenues are going down, and you ultimately the people who are stealing this content are trying to replace you, right? So if we looked at what the ecosystem was we create content and we get and we get traffic back. There's that value exchange, right? And I see it constantly, and it niggles me a little bit, to say the least, in regards to when you see people go, "Oh, but it's free information. The information's out there. It's on the web. So just like how I can read it, it's the AI companies are taking it." It's like, no, right? Because what you forget is there is a value exchange taking place when a user comes to a site. It gives us the opportunity to serve advertising to them. It gives us the opportunity to earn affiliate commission off them. You don't get any of those opportunities when a bot comes and steals it. That disappears, right? So therefore, if we're not getting paid with that value exchange, where does the value exchange take place? Now, I don't know whether, there isn't a I think this is going to be debated for years to come in terms of what is the correct model here. Is there a cost based upon RAG, or necessarily a RAG? It could end up being with MCP access now. Does it become API? Based upon API calls, right? So some form of every time your content's used, you get a payment. Is it? But then the payment differs between training and RAG, because that's the other thing that becomes an issue. Right,
like air gap, Chris.
Right,
Remember?
exactly. Yeah, no, completely. But this is the whole thing that with it. I think they're going to be thinking a lot further ahead than a lot of the people doing these deals in media companies. And the media company will think, brilliant, let's do a RAG deal. They'll be thinking, brilliant, well, let's just train our model more often, and therefore that will decrease our RAG payments. Because once it's trained and taking that content for training, they don't need to necessarily RAG it because it's in their knowledge base. Right. So it's only valuable for new content written past the point of training. So there needs to be, again, an egg up would have been great, because even from a trading perspective,
it's not dead. It's not dead. Okay,
well,
it's proven, mate.
Yeah. So, in terms of what that model is, I don't necessarily have the right answer for everybody, right? But what I'm saying is there needs to be a fair value exchange. Be that traffic back to the levels it has been, right? And I'm not talking about, oh well, 0% zero click search is now at 70%. Well, we'll move it back to 70%. No. Move it back to how it was. Even 50% is still ridiculous, right? But get it back to 50%. If you look at some of the AI search guys and like ProRata, another plug, sorry, right? So look at the ProRata guys, okay, and you look at their AI search gist.ai, right? They are trying everything they possibly can within that response to try and drive traffic back to publishers. There's links everywhere. There's big boxes everywhere, right? And they say that they're getting a minimum of 5% click-through rate on there. Again, I don't know. I haven't got the numbers, but they're telling us a minimum of 5%. In a lot of cases, a lot higher than that, right? A 5% click-through rate on an AI search, do you know what? The industry would probably be fairly happy with that value exchange, if that's the case. If that becomes the norm. But we're a long way away from that currently.
But I think you've got an interesting point there, which is also we can put these kind of cases in, and we can say you've got to stop the harms. Effectively, there is there's a giant running through the school playground, and there's kids flying off everywhere, and that's got to stop. It's not necessarily the job of the Independent Publishers Association to come up with a completely thought through, second generation digital ecosystem. That's not how this works. We basically have to say that there's harm being done here because of the implications of a giant monopoly in the system that we're basically all working, and that's all we can do now, right? It's not sort of beholden on us to have all the answers.
It is and it isn't, right? You're very much right, and we're never going to be able to fix everything from an Independent Publishers Alliance perspective. However, I've been in seeing quite a few MPs and so forth over the last few weeks, and one of the things that comes up time and time again is like, how is there a solution, right? What are your thoughts on this, right? Because I think I think the governments are feeling, people are saying this is happening, this is hurting my business, but they don't really understand the industry and they don't really know what they can do about it. And if they went to the big tech guys and go, right, this is a problem, how do you fix it? Right, they'll come up with some ideas. Say that they're not necessarily going to be great for us, but they'll definitely come up with some solutions. So what we're doing at the moment is a case of when we're speaking to these MPs, at least saying these are the types of things that you could do. Right, the technology is there to be able to do collective licensing or agreements or payment on RAG and payment for training. That's there today. It can be done. So to say, oh, it's not feasible, we can't possibly pay everyone for their content. They could, and it would actually be fairly easy for them to do so.
Agreed.
I thought
100%.
I thought one of the most tone deaf things of the last week or so, the open wall launch. I don't know what you saw of that, but the Google launching some kind of micro payment meets kind of payment for advertising thing. I just thought
sign me up. Sign me up. I trust they have my best intentions at heart.
I thought it was stunningly kind of for everything you've just described and where everybody is, the fact that they would assume, and who knows who'll sign up, because there's always someone who does. But I thought it was astonishing that they would try and almost launch that kind of solution in the middle of this conversation.
I think it plays to a narrative, and they'll get some sort of marketing quotes from it, right? In regards to, and we're already seeing it right now in regards to people saying, "Oh, the traffic you get from AI overviews is much better quality traffic than original search." Right? It's better quality, right? Now, that what I would say from that, and in all fairness, I've read some of the case studies on the people who are actually saying they are seeing better quality traffic, right? But they aren't the ones affected by what's going on. And what I mean by that is a case of going, if you're a SaaS business, right, and you sell, I don't know, say you sell an HR platform, right? If someone goes into an AI search and goes, what's the best HR platform? Okay. And it comes out and goes, this one, is the best HR platform you can possibly get. And they are brilliant. And they click on that and there's some information about it. Tell me more about that platform and so forth, right? And they click through from there. Yes. Do you know what? I imagine their conversion rate on that particular bit of traffic is better from them just having best HR traffic. Here's a random thing for Bamboo HR. I can click that. Now I need to learn about them and so forth. Do you see what I mean? So yes, I'm sure that type of traffic is better converting. But from everything we're seeing, right, from a publisher's perspective and the content creators who are ultimately funding and creating the AI in the first place, it couldn't be further from the truth, right? Bounce rates, worse, right? Number of pages per visit, worse. Right? So any of the metrics relevant for publishing, terrible, right? But for everybody else, but they, as I said, but they are taking it's better quality traffic. Look at this. Now, what potentially with the launch of their products, if they if there's an element of better quality in converting traffic and that aspect of things, they're probably I foresee someone turning around going, oh, the conversion rate was a lot higher than it is from AI overviews coming to our content than somebody else, because they've already displayed a load of that information already. It's going to be. They've got more knowledge before they make the transaction.
I also think it's simpler than that. That if in a lot of the studies that I've seen to talk about that quality, it's just the fact that you've removed all traffic that wasn't certain it needed to get to that destination. And then they measure quality on the basis of people stay longer when they turn up. Well, it's because you've taken away all the people that weren't really sure that's where they wanted to end up. Essentially, casual discovery. If you remove the whole of casual discovery from what you deliver to a site, yes, the people that are there have worked harder to get there and therefore probably do stay longer. I don't think that's a win. Because also the model on most ad-funded sites works on a combination of quality and quantity. And quantity is a pretty big driver of it. Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm not sure that's an answer.
No.
It's fine. I'm perfectly happy with them to come up with stupid ideas like that, because then we can take them to pieces in conversations like this, which is absolutely terrific. I ought to say that Lawrence O'Toole's just joined the call. So Lawrence worked with me way back when, and I think with you as well, Chris. I think you met him. On doing the very first research project when AI Overviews was brand new. And the great thing about the work that we did was that we were able to set a baseline on what Google was doing when it was pretending it wasn't doing anything. So we were able to look at what content it was taking, what percentage of content it was taking, what it was returning. And so we managed to get a baseline that said this is what it was. And then you can see how over time, and Lawrence's work and my work have been tracking all the way along the line which bits Google's attacking and what it's after and what it's taking and what it's prioritizing. And it's looking at the highest yielding advertising verticals like travel and health and all these things that are difficult to get hold of. So it's all completely clear that it's cynical, commercially driven, and has, by the way, zero to do with search or consumers. Nothing. That's the afterthought. This is purely and simply about ensuring that it can maintain its revenues. Now, the good thing about all of that, of course, is that it takes us back to this global conversation about the DOJ. Because frankly, it doesn't really matter what Google does here. And Chris, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do what you're doing. You absolutely should. We should apply pain to the wound in as many ways as we can from all different directions. Every single one of us should be jamming a finger in this wound, right? But the truth is the DOJ has caused the wound, and the DOJ intends to kill them off altogether. And so that's too far. It intends to make them appropriately sized for their contribution to the market they're in, which basically means that everybody else has to survive as well. Okay. And so, when you said earlier on, I heard you say, Christopher, earlier on, you said, we don't have a solution for everyone. In my opinion, the solution for everyone is Chrome. So we can definitely do air gap, and we can definitely charge for every call, and we can definitely put a monetization model to every single time it makes a query in a RAG. Absolutely. We should definitely do that. We should definitely do that, and we will do that. All right. But if the publishing industry takes control of Chrome, okay, then we take control of 68% of all web traffic, and we can choose where it's directed. And the DOJ is very keen for that to happen. So let's be clear that there is a solve all in this mixture of changes. That, maybe Google's literally just trying to take its pennies before it can. Chris, he's got to jump off. You see, he's on holiday in Portugal. So you're allowed to let
well, fair play to him.
Allowed to let him drop off, right?
Yeah.
But look, that might be the answer to everything ultimately, Chris, is that, we'll do air gap, we'll catch them, you'll catch them. All the court cases I'm involved in, all of the class actions will catch them. Everybody is now going to go and take back some of the losses that they've incurred over the last 20 years. There's a complete redrawing of the marketplace taking place. But ultimately, if we want to end it and stop it, we need to remove the single most important piece of their monopoly, which is Chrome. And the way to know that that is the most important piece is because it's the thing they talk about least. So just don't lose sight of that.
What I would say on the Chrome front, I think today, I think that is the case, right? Chrome would be great for publishers. I think with the news with OpenAI and Anthropic launching their own browser, that could be quite interesting to see how that would affect their market share.
I missed that because somebody just popped into my.
No, I was just saying. Obviously, a couple of the AI companies like OpenAI are creating their own browsers, right? So
sure.
Between now and the point that Chrome that Chrome gets sold off, what market share does it manage to kind of grab back from them? Because otherwise, theoretically, there's going to be another monopoly.
Yeah,
we're going to have to go after on these things.
Well, I was on a call with the FTC, Federal Trade Commission in America earlier this week, who ultimately aren't in this, but they're a regulator, an American regulator, and it's clear that it's not going to go. Chrome's not going to go to another tech company, right? Because it just creates another monopoly, and we're back in court in 3 months. And it's not going to go to one of the AI companies, because if it does, we're going to be back in court in 3 months. And so private equity has stepped up and said, hey, look, we'll put tons of money in, we'll do it. But they're focused on profit, not on product. And so that's not going to happen. And then several governments have stepped up and said, we'll take it on. And the answer to that is no, we can't have that either, because it's a problem for democracy. So if it's not big tech and it's not AI and it's not government, who's fourth? And the truth is, it's the content community, it's us. And so we need to have, not you, I mean, you're quite busy already, I believe, with this court case you might be taking on. But, for me, if I'm banging a drum for what the industry needs to do next, the actual answer here is it's time to corral the cats and argue that we as an industry need to take control of Chrome, because if we do that, then we can control our future destiny. But also there's this other piece of this, which is that, to your point about AI, there's not going to be any mass adoption of AI until people trust AI is giving us good answers, right? I don't want rocks on pizza anymore, right? And so we want it to go to the future that we want AI to be, because ultimately, I think we all ultimately want AI to be awesome. Yeah. And we want to have better search, and we want to be able to service customers better, and we're happy to adapt to that new world order. But the thing is, we have to be allowed to survive into that future. And given that we create the content that people trust, we're essential to this AI future, because there will not be mass adoption of AI until people can trust what they find on AI. So if the publishing industry takes Chrome, all the world's information is effectively delivered in Chrome, and the data in Chrome tells you the entire ecosystem of the open web. If we control that, then we can kill the nonsense and prioritize the truth, and we can start to build potentially what AI needs to be, because frankly, Google's already shown us it can't be trusted with that job.
Fair.
All right, shall we do it then?
Where do I sign?
just as well, you can send me a couple of bottles of whiskey for all those free ads you placed into our screen. Look, we've got some really important people that follow this this podcast, Chris. You are stepping up. You mentioned earlier on, you've put your head above the parapet. You're going for it. Yeah?
Yeah.
What? I don't want to ask you what you want. Fast forward 3 years, 5 years. Let's go 5 years. Fast forward 5 years. What's the ecosystem that you want to be a part of? Because I know how we've met in pubs in London. We've met on the phone for years. We've chatted for hours and hours and hours and hours. I know how passionate you are. You're the same as me, right? We're a tribe. What do you want in a few years' time? What is the wake up in the morning? I can't wait to get to the office because we're going to do this. Where do you need to be?
I think it's good. I want a thriving ecosystem that potentially there was 15 years ago, in the digital landscape, right? One where that it's not just the big guys that can make money, and people can start a business from their bedroom and make it work, right? And it's based upon where quality outshines mass rubbish ultimately, right? And an ecosystem that rewards people for putting that money in the first place. So whether that be through, as I mentioned, through payments every time that content is accessed, or whether that's through traffic for people coming to those sites. Just a way that people can be rewarded for the effort and quality of their work, ultimately.
Chris, everyone that's on this podcast is with you, and anybody that isn't fucking welcome. So look, we as an industry, okay, we've not done a great job over the last couple of years of banding together and supporting each other, right? And you've heard me say many times that, we're ants fighting elephants, and we get terribly indignant and we shout about our right to exist. But to be honest with you, we haven't really done an awful lot to actually justify that base argument. Okay. And we need to collaborate, and we need to work together and cooperate and build things together. I mentioned earlier on about the class actions. There's thousands of publishers in those class actions now, and they're finding a way to work together there. And the thing you're doing is, getting a ton of interest across the industry and people starting to collaborate there. We just need to collaborate because we're the bigger elephant, and Google's elephant is lame. Okay. And so I don't need to tell you this because I know you already believe it. I can see it in your eyes all the way from the other side of the world. We're in a fight, right? And we're fighting the good fight, and we're going to win the fight finally. We just need to make sure that what we build on the other side is going to be better than what we've got today. And, with you and others and the people that are on this call, we can get there. So I know for you, it looks like a ton of work. And for your members, it looks absolutely existential and terrifying and awful. But we are actually 5 past midnight on a better future, not 5 to midnight in our ending. And so just, I just want you to go away from this. I hope everybody else goes away from this realizing that the hard work's already been done. The DOJ has broken the dam. And now we just need to make sure that we do a good job of building what comes out the other side of it. Does that help you? I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
I'll give you a big hug when I'm in London in a couple of weeks.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, look, I don't know if anybody's got any last questions really quick if they want to throw them in. So I'll just give you 1 minute to send a question in if you've got anything. Chris, was there anything else that you wanted to say? I know you've got the preschool guys are involved from the legal side. You've got
They've been fantastic.
EU, you've got the CMA, you've got Is there anything you need?
I don't think so. I mean, like, as I said, what I would say is that if people think they have data across their own sites and so forth, they think it could help the cause, feel free, send them over. We're happy to see them. If people have got ideas about how it could be fixed, right? Happy to hear them as well. I mean, one of the things that did get mentioned, obviously, in the UK, we have we got TPS, right? So the telephone protection service, I think. So if you don't want the nuisance phone calls, right, you put your number on the list, and then in theory, before any marketing calls get sent to that, they're not allowed to call you if you're on the list. If there was a centralized government, here's these website that you cannot crawl or take from, because it looks like the opt-in aspect of things isn't necessarily going to happen. But if there was a centralized list, right, whereby anybody breaks that, right, there's not a case of going, oh, I did it by accident. If you break it, there is a fine, and that fine goes majority back to the victim in that case. That could be an interesting proposition.
It is an interesting idea. Would you put your website on there?
Yeah. 100%.
All right.
I didn't even need to think about that. Yeah.
Mate, we don't talk enough. I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy you're taking this action. All power to you. And if there's anything I can do to help you, just give me a call, right?
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for jumping on. Really appreciate it. We will be back again next week, same time, and can't wait to see you. All right. All good. See you next time. Keep fighting the good fight.
See you later on. Thanks, guys.
Bye, mate.